Well, here it is, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, it is time to go inside EMS. I am your host, Chris Cebollero, as we are closing out another EMS week. And I got to tell you, man, this is our 11th EMS week of doing this show, and I couldn't have done it without my good friend Kelly Grayson, KG, the end of EMS week 2025.
Yeah, man, I'm still waiting for people to give me the gift basket, with all the leftover stuff from hospital week and nurses week. We'll get
Yeah.
sloppy joes this year, with the leftover hamburgers from hospital week and the leftover chili from nurses week. It's going to be great.
Oh, it is. And don't forget the badge, the sticker that says you're a,
That's right. You're a hero.
that's right. So
I tell you what, I don't feel like a hero until I get that sticker.
I
Makes me
did
feel so much better.
I did see your x-rays though, man. Look like you're in for a little bit of a little bit of rehab coming up here soon.
Yeah. I'm going to have some aftermarket parts after the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
I could get them done now, but I would be, or in September, but I would be recuperating during conference season and hunting season. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah,
So,
right. It's something you got to give up. So we're here EMS week, right? And I think that, you've said it for years that, we need to reverse EMS week and we need to treat EMTs and paramedics and dispatchers and supervisors with respect and do things for them the 51 weeks of the year. And then we need to take EMS week off and we can regroup to start,
yeah,
again next week. But when we think about EMS week, Kelly, I think the thing that I want to ask you the most is why does EMS week still matter? I mean, when we think about this, why does it matter for us?
it's our official 1 week a year to say, hey, what you do isn't just important, it's essential, it's vital. I don't think we're really good at promoting ourselves, except during EMS week. I don't think that the healthcare system could operate without EMS professionals, and it's our 1 week to pat ourselves on the back. I wish that we could do it more often, but it honors the sacrifice and the grit and the love behind what we do.
Yeah. And, really, it was a rhetorical question. The reason that EMS week exists, the reason that it matters is because it is our opportunity. It is our opportunity to get the word out. It is our opportunity to recognize the folks that are doing a job every single day, that are showing up, that are wearing the weight of the uniform, and that are making a difference. This year, the theme was honoring our commitment, driving the future. And when we start to think about that, that really captures where we are as a career field, that really captures what we're doing in EMS. And I think it was a great theme for this year.
Yeah, it's I am somewhat ambivalent about the EMS week themes every year. I think the someone in a EMSP who doesn't really get EMS and has never worked on an ambulance comes up with these themes, and they're very high-minded. I'm not sure that they capture what we do, but the part about the alternate theme, we care for everyone, honoring our commitment, driving the future, we do have a commitment, and we do need to have an eye toward the future of what EMS is going to be in the future. It's not the same job it was 10 years ago, and it's not going to be the same job 10 years from now. It's going to be a different animal. Compare it to when you started in EMS, and it is a totally different thing. It's
You have to throw
faster,
that, you have to throw that at
complex, more
me.
demanding.
When I started at EMS, is that any
Yeah,
different when you started?
when you started in EMS, I mean, we it was your textbook was written on papyrus leaves,
That's right.
and you had to chisel your ambulance wheels out of stone. But
That's right. It was our monitor was the jumper cables to our van. So that's when we were driving van. But let's go ahead and have some fun with EMS week, right? So when
yeah,
we think about the stuff that we do, what's the surefire signs, Kelly Grayson, that you're in EMS?
if you think of Taco Bell as a post location, you
Right.
may be in EMS. If you finish a trauma report while chewing your beef jerky at 3 o'clock in the morning, you might be in EMS. If you
Uh,
walked into a house and instantly identified the source of the smell and what shift ran at the last call, you might be in EMS.
that's
And we've
funny.
all walked into those houses where you go, there's a GI bleeder somewhere in this house.
Yeah.
You know, I think only the EMS people get that.
Yeah.
If you've never experienced deja vu, but you've experienced vujade,
That's right.
you're probably in EMS.
Or how about
Vujade
what
is that feeling nothing like this has ever
ever
happened
happened
before.
before? That's right.
This is a first, a war story material.
That's right. Or how about when your partner communicates an entire treatment plan by just the raise of his eyebrows and the nod of his head?
That is the best thing
That's
about
right.
EMS for me, is that rapport you have with your partner where you can You can communicate with just a look. You can complete each other's sentences. I love that. I ran a call with my paramedic instructor after I've been a paramedic for 4 or 5 years. And in 12 hours, I think we said 6 words to each other, good morning. Hey, about noon. Hey, you want to eat? We do that. And that was all the communication needed to be said. And that's a rare thing. We don't get that often. And EMS is unusual in that regard.
Agreed. Yeah. But let's take a serious look. We think about our EMS professionals, our EMS partners, the men and women who get up every day, put the uniform on. It isn't just about dark humor. It isn't just about gallows humor. We could come up with tons of stuff about creative caffeine habits, right? Or all these monster drinks. But, it's the way that we show up under pressure time and time again, Kelly, that really makes this a career field. And I got to tell you, man, I haven't done as much patient care in an ambulance over the past, 3 or 4 years, but the folks that are doing the work make me proud to be a first responder.
No, absolutely. I can't think of any other profession other than, say, law enforcement, where you arrive on a scene by yourself or with a small team of people or one partner, and you're expected to turn chaos into calm.
Yeah.
And EMS people excel at that sort of thing. They can take a chaotic scene and make it calm and reassure people just by their very presence. What other professions do you do where you go through that? You're making these life and death decisions, and then you can, while you're making these life and death decisions, wink and smile at the patient or their family member to give them some reassurance that, hey, this is, no matter how bad they think it is, it's just another day for us and we're well capable of handling it. People that can do that compassion and that calmness at the same time are a rare breed indeed. I think it's Martin Luther King Jr. called it the toughness of the serpent and the compassion of the dove.
Right,
and
right.
It's only in EMS and some emergency medicine people, you see that unique combination of traits.
What's interesting as well is I don't know how many times I've answered this question, but I've always answered it the same. Am I dying today, or am I going to die? And
Yeah.
these are people who just don't understand what's going on, but you've taken their blood pressure, you put them on a monitor, and you're making them feel comfortable. And I used to say the same thing. Nobody dies in this ambulance today.
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes it was easy as just, holding somebody's hand. But let's bring it back to the core and why we do and why we stay and why we're in this work. I mean, because that's the thing now. When you start to think about EMS as a career, Kelly, why are we doing this work and why are we continuing to, challenge our resilience and, diminish our inspiration sometimes. And sometimes we're not very motivated when we come to work. But you know what? When we show up, we're delivering the highest quality of care that we can, regardless of how we feel inside.
Obviously, the reason we stay in is to pay in the chicks, right?
That's right. That's right.
One day I'll get that raise where I'll be able to afford that swanky double wide I've had my eye on for so long.
And you'll be on monthly on home and trailer.
Yeah, I think that you hesitate to say this part out loud. I love this job so much I do it for free. I'm afraid my employers would hear that. But truly, for me, it's nice to make good money at what I'm doing now. I think I'm finally paid what I'm worth, what I think I'm worth. But even that, the office politics and the drudgery of a career in EMS can get to you until you have that one call where you managed to make someone smile when they were terrified, and when you had a save, or when you were able to make somebody's horrible day just a little bit better with your presence. And that kind of thing you can't quantify with a paycheck, and it will not fill your wallet, but it'll fill your heart pretty well.
And what's interesting too is we don't boast this. The folks in EMS, it's a quiet pride, right? In the things that we do, we don't go out and talk about the things that we saw today. Maybe we have a little bit about that, but I would get a little bit annoyed when people would say to me, "What's the worst thing that you've ever seen?" And
paycheck.
Yeah, great. Well, Greg Freeze has a great comment. He said, "What's the worst thing you've ever seen?" He goes, "The day they put pineapple on pizza." And I've used that because I think it really is a great line. This isn't a flashy job, man. It's not always recognized. It's thankless at times, but it's real. And it's the one that gets in your blood. And once it gets in your blood, nothing's going to match that. Nothing's going to match the adrenaline. I mean, do I get as excited today as I did the first time I turned on lights and sirens and drove through traffic? You know what? It still revs me up a little bit.
Yeah. You know, it's the saying, EMS never leaves you, even when you may leave it. We, you know, how many people do you see at conferences that haven't run a call in 15 years and they still show up at EMS conferences, or they still have their certification current because it's a point of pride with them, and it's so much of their identity. Sometimes identifying so much with what you do and not being able to just call it a job is harmful for our mental health. But I don't think there's any doubt that people who are in EMS identify personally with what they do. It's a big part of who they are. I don't think that's really a bad thing.
Yeah.
I think that we can do that and still be healthy in our relationships. You know, for the folks listening, thank you for everything that you do. Chris and I have been doing this podcast for what, 11, 12 years now,
Yeah.
many hundreds of episodes, and the fact that people still listen and care about what we have to say is tremendously gratifying. I appreciate everyone in EMS, and most particularly the people that are listening to our podcast. It's brotherhood. You know, it's a family. Sometimes we eat our own family members, but no one gets you like a person who's been on that ambulance and in that same kind of situation. And that is a rare gift, and something we shouldn't take for granted, the gift of brotherhood in EMS.
Yeah, now, and everybody that's out there, I mean, all the veterans that have been working in EMS forever, it's your mentorship, it's your stories, it's the examples of holding the profession together that's important. You know, that there's a
Mhm.
lot of new people that come in all the time. As Kelly said, sometimes we eat our young. You know what? Sometimes we make that a rite of passage that you have to be able to prove yourself to be in the organization, that you have to, but we got to get away from that, right? If we hire somebody into the organization, their family, and we shouldn't have to haze them. And I mean, how many hazings did we do to the new people when they came in? Well, I know I was hazed, so I did it back, right? But now we've got to think about it that as soon as, you know, we can't do this job without these people coming into the organization to help us to be successful. And I want to thank everybody who's out there who does the work, but we need to be able to start taking care of the new that are coming in, because eventually they're going to take over as podcast hosts when we have to move along, right? So yeah, let me ask you this. Let's do a challenge for EMS Week, Kelly. So here's our ask that to all of you that are out there, you know, I'm sure you made EMS Week count. And what I think is important is I would like you to try to share that story, celebrate with someone, celebrate with somebody outside of EMS, and let them know what you do and let them know how important your job is. And of course, people that are inside EMS, you know, tell a new EMT that they're doing a great job, or take 10 minutes to remember why you started. I love to ask the story. How did you get into EMS? And I think one of the books that I've always wanted to write is how we got into EMS and what's your story. And that maybe I just gave it away. So somebody out there, why don't you pick up that topic and write a story about how we got into EMS and why this is a calling for us?
Oh yeah, and you know, I've had the privilege of editing a couple of anthologies of that very thing, where EMS professionals bared their soul and give you an insight into what it's like on the ambulance and in the mind and the heart of an EMT. I wish that more people would do it. You know, if everyone they read my book or they read your books and go, oh, I wish I could write a book. Yeah, you've got a book in you. You can write a book. You may not have the craft of writing, but as Hemingway put it, writing is easy. You just sit at the typewriter and bleed. That's that's the essence of it. And if you have a story to share, share it. Put it on social media. Post it on Instagram. Whatever you have. Tell them how your shift was. Call your mom. Tell your relatives and your family members, and give them an insight into what it is that we do. Doesn't have to be heroic. It doesn't have to be a gnarly call. Just the human connection and the way it affected you and the way it affects you, who you are as a person. That's the kind of stuff that we need to share with the people who are not in EMS.
Yeah. And then I got to tell you, there's got to be more of that as well. I mean, I would love to hear from my crews. We just did a employee engagement survey, and we're hearing from the workforce of the things we're doing okay. But you know what? We took a little kick in the pants too, right? Because sometimes we get into the business of doing business and we forget the people who are really doing the work. And don't forget to advocate for yourself, advocate for your crew, advocate for better staffing, fair treatment, mental health support. You know, because in EMS, we can't grow unless we know. And we have to be able to stand up for that ourselves. We have to be able to stand up for our organization because it's our organization too.
And yeah, you said a mouthful there. Have I said in this podcast in the past that we should be advocating loudly for EMS for 51 weeks a year, and we should take the third week in May off in some place with a beach and then drink with an umbrella in it, so people can understand what the public knows what life is like without EMS. We don't do a good job of promoting ourselves and of advocating for ourselves. I had great conversations with students at the primary assessment conference in Lake Placid last week.
Yeah.
And they were like, Kelly, we have these crappy protocols and the doctors don't let us do this or do that. And there are things you can do about that. You can advocate and you can change those protocols, and you can stand up for yourself as an individual provider and as a profession. And that's the way change is made. Don't just accept the role that they put you in.
Yeah. Well, let me give you a final thought, Kelly, before your final thought. And it's not just this week, it's every shift, it's every call, it's every patient. You're part of something bigger and you make a difference every day, and we try on this show to make you, to help you to understand and to know that you make a difference every day. We do it with some humor, we do it with some argument, we do it with some good topics. We try to inform, we try to persuade, we try to entertain, but we do it for you because we were you, right? We did what you're doing. And EMS week comes to a close. I want to go ahead and share my appreciation that you really matter. I know that if I'm ever in an accident or I fall down the stairs or if I break a hip, I'm going to get the men and women in EMS to come to my house and take care of me. And I got to tell you, man, that may be a new sense of pride for me because I can't imagine the humbling experience of me falling down the stairs in my underwear on a Sunday morning and someone having to come and scoop me up and take me to the hospital. But you know what? As I get older, that may happen. So cheers to everybody out there as we close another EMS week. But your final thoughts, my friend.
Likewise, thank you to everyone in EMS who does what you do. I don't think we consider how much we can change lives just by that 5 or 10 minutes we have a patient, but it does matter. It matters to them. It matters to the public and to society in general. Keep on being the rumpled angels of healthcare. Grab that donut, drink a beer to celebrate, whatever it is you do. Pat yourself on the back because you are dedicated and you are a credit to this profession. And we hope that you keep doing that and we have an equally good conversation next year. Thanks for tuning in to Inside EMS. I'm going to catch you guys next week.